The United States government and a guy going through a midlife crisis have a lot more in common than you'd expect. Instead of a messy divorce, overpriced cocktails, and a brand new Corvette, Uncle Sam is blowing trillions on healthcare programs, tanks, and monthly checks for over 70 million retirees. And unlike a normal midlife crisis, the kind you fix with therapy, a gym membership, and one questionable tattoo you swear has deep meaning, this one doesn't end. We have to live through it every single year. And this spending addiction is exactly how we ended up running nearly a $2 trillion deficit. That means the U.S. government spends almost $2 trillion more than it earns every year. We're basically a college freshman with a credit card and zero understanding of consequences. So what happens when the debt collectors show up? We don't cut spending. We don't raise enough revenue. We just borrow the difference every single year. Which is why America's national debt has exploded past $38 trillion, a number so large it barely feels real. So that leaves one massive question. Can this mess actually be fixed? After spending over 60 hours buried in government reports, spreadsheets, and charts that made me question reality, I came to one uncomfortable conclusion. The solutions are ugly, they're unpopular, and they're guaranteed to anger millions of people. But before we rip the Band-Aid off, you need some context. What a deficit really means. A deficit happens when the government spends more than it collects in revenue. Think of it like a business that never turns a profit. And the United States hasn't been profitable since 2001. In fact, things have gotten dramatically worse. Since 2020, America has been running trillion-dollar deficits every single year, like it's our new national sport. Baseball is out, fiscal irresponsibility is in. So how does the strongest economy on earth bleed money year after year? To understand that, we need to look at where the money is actually going. This is where the details matter, so stick with me. It will all click by the end. The three buckets of government spending. Federal spending falls into three categories: mandatory spending, discretionary spending, and net interest. Mandatory spending. This is spending locked in by law. Programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Think of it like rent. You don't really get a choice unless you want serious consequences. Discretionary spending. This is what Congress debates every year: defense, education, infrastructure, and foreign aid. This is the part politicians love to argue about on TV. Net interest. This is the interest we owe on existing debt. It's not optional. It's not voted on. It's the bill for all the previous bills we didn't pay. When you add all three together, you get total federal spending. And here's the brutal reality. The 5 lines that run America. Just 5 line items account for nearly 70% of the entire federal budget: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, national defense, and interest on the debt. Everything else? Pocket change by comparison. Which brings us to one of the biggest myths in politics: why cutting foreign aid does nothing. You've seen the guy online screaming about foreign aid, so let's talk numbers. In 2024, the U.S. spent about $78 billion on foreign aid. Sounds massive, right? It's not. That's roughly 1% of the federal budget. Even if we cut foreign aid to zero, what would it buy us? About 19 days of Social Security payments. 19 days. Then we're right back to borrowing. Foreign aid isn't the problem. It's barely even a rounding error. The only 2 real options. If we want seriously reduced deficits, there are only 2 options: cut national defense or cut mandatory spending. Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. That's it. Everything else is noise. When 70% of your budget is eaten by 5 massive programs, trimming the edges doesn't matter. It's like trying to lose weight by switching from regular Coke to Diet Coke while still eating McDonald's every day. So let's look at those options. Option 1. Cut defense. Defense spending is about $850 billion a year, roughly 13% of the budget. And yes, the U.S. spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. But cutting it is politically radioactive. The moment you suggest it, people start imagining paratroopers landing on their lawn.
Defense has become America's emotional support blanket. With rising global tensions and constant fear-based headlines, no politician wants to be blamed for cutting it. So realistically, major defense cuts aren't happening. Which leaves us with option 2, mandatory spending. Mandatory spending is Mount Everest, huge, dangerous, and attacking it can end your career overnight. The 3 untouchable giants are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Together, they cost about $3 trillion a year, nearly 44% of the federal budget. So let's start with the biggest one, Social Security. Over 70 million Americans rely on Social Security. For half of retirees, it provides more than 50% of their income. For 1/4, it's over 90%. Cut benefits and millions of seniors fall into poverty overnight. But here's the problem. The Social Security Trust Fund is projected to run out by 2034. When that happens, benefits will be automatically cut by about 20%, no vote required. Doing nothing still means cuts. The good news is, Social Security is fixable. 2 changes would actually move the needle. First, lift or eliminate the payroll tax. Right now, income above roughly $170,000 isn't taxed for Social Security. Eliminating that cap could close about 73% of the long-term funding gap. Second, adjust benefits for high-income retirees. If someone earns millions in investment income, do they really need Social Security? If Warren Buffett qualifies, something's broken. Medicare. Medicare covers over 65 million Americans and costs more than $850 billion a year. That's more than the entire GDP of many developed countries. Its trust fund is projected to become insolvent by 2033, triggering automatic benefit cuts of about 11%. Options? Raise the Medicare payroll tax slightly. A 1-point increase could raise over $1 trillion over a decade. Another major issue is Medicare Advantage overpayments. Estimates show overpayments of $80 to $120 billion every year, potentially trillions of dollars wasted over the next decade. Fixing it would save money and absolutely enrage the insurance industry, which explains why it hasn't happened. Medicaid. Medicaid covers around 70 million Americans and costs more than $600 billion annually. Unlike Social Security and Medicare, it can't go insolvent, but it does suffer from massive improper payments, errors, fraud, and eligibility mistakes. Over 5% of spending falls into this category, costing tens of billions of dollars every year. Cracking down on this alone would make a real dent. What if we do nothing? Here's the danger. If the U.S. keeps borrowing trillions of dollars every year with no plan, investors will demand higher interest rates. Higher rates mean higher mortgages, higher car loans, higher credit card interest, slower economic growth. High interest rates choke an economy in slow motion. And while there's still time to fix this, the window is shrinking. The longer we wait, the worse the options become. After all this research, one thing is clear. There is no perfect solution, only trade-offs, only sacrifices. But doing nothing is the worst option of all. So I want to hear your ideas. How should America fix this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be responding to as many as I can. Because if there's one takeaway from this video, it's this: ignoring the problem isn't an option anymore.